Okay, hey, I'm Patrick Woodhead from Space Meridian. It's a new company that has just spun out of Protocol Labs, and that's a title slide again. Okay, so I spoke a bit about Spark yesterday, but I'm just going to rattle through a few of the introductory slides again, just to give a bit of context. At Space Meridian, one of the things that we're working on is Spark, and Spark is a trustless protocol for sampling retrievals from Filecoin storage providers. So why are we building Spark? We want to improve the retrieval success rate of public data on Filecoin. Traditionally, a lot of the data on Filecoin has just been kind of archival data, and the rewards of Filecoin reward people for storing data, but not so much for providing retrievals over that data. So Spark is, to begin with, a protocol to just measure how good the retrievability is of the Filecoin network, and then we want to use incentives with Spark to try and improve the overall retrieval success rate. So let's measure retrievability. What do we actually want to have as like a high-level metric? We want to have this overall retrieval success rate of the data we want to be able to retrieve on Filecoin. Once we've got that, we want to break it down to see a retrieval success rate for each individual storage provider to see which storage providers are providing good retrievals. And this can help to inform things like the data cap discussion that we were hearing earlier from Marta and Will. And then we also want visibility into where these retrievals are failing so that we can help SPs improve their retrieval score and improve the network as a whole. And then one constraint when we're actually trying to measure retrievability is we do need to make sure that this protocol is trustless, decentralized. If we have just kind of a centralized retrieval client that's making these measurements, particularly if we start to link up data cap allocation to how good retrieval is, this client's going to become quite a position of power. So we need to make sure that these retrievals are done from clients that are like running in a decentralized network. Okay, so that was kind of just a recap of some of the stuff we saw yesterday, and now we're on to the new stuff. When we first started running Spark and making retrievals against storage providers, we needed to have this network of Spark clients who were going to make requests to storage providers, these retrieval requests. The station network, which is another product which Space Meridian is working on, is a network which is actually running these Spark clients. And we needed a way to kind of bootstrap the station network so we had enough Spark clients to make these retrieval requests. So in sort of October, November last year, we started, we rolled out sort of payments to station operators for doing Spark jobs. And the way that this worked was that we just got kind of grant funding from Protocol Labs. And we took that fill into our team, Space Meridian, and we then put it into the Spark smart contract, which is what we call an impact evaluator. It takes in measurements from all these Spark clients when they've done their retrievals. It evaluates over all of these jobs, these measurements that have been done, and then it rewards each of the Spark clients with some fill for the work they've done. So you can see here the flow of fill goes from the Spark smart contract to these Spark clients which are running on station. And just, I mean, what we've been working with so far is 1,000 fill per month to the entire network. And we immediately saw it grow from sort of 50 station operators up. Actually, I think I've got it on the next slide. Yeah, okay. So we started like in October with like 50 station operators, and even with this small amount of fill, and people are really not earning that much for doing this, just kind of like, I think, 0.1 fill, 0.2 fill, kind of sitting in some wallets. Some power users have actually got up to like 70, 80 fill, and that's because they're running a lot of different station nodes, but it's not like crazy amounts of money. But what we've seen is that we've had a really nice growth of the station network from, as I said, 50 back in October, November, up to about over 13,000 individual fill wallets earning through doing Spark measurements. And just to say that each of these fill wallets can be attached to multiple station nodes. So even though there's only 13,000 fill wallets, that could be like a station, like the number of actual stations could be sort of over 20,000 or something, or a lot higher than that. So yeah, small incentives there to grow a deepened network of, tens of thousands of nodes, which is pretty cool. However, growing the Spark clients doesn't actually incentivize the storage providers to provide good retrievals yet. We've grown a network to make the requests, but we haven't got anything linked up to incentivize better retrievals. And this links back to kind of what Martha and Will were talking about. So What deals were we actually testing with Spark? Until March 2024, there was this Fill Plus LDN program, which stated that stored data should be readily retrievable on the network. So we began the Spark program by by testing deals which were created with Fill Plus LDN. But since April 2024, we've moved on to these allocator pathways. And so allocators are able to give data cap to certain clients to make storage deals. And we need to make sure that Spark is able to understand which allocator pathways value retrievability and make sure that we're testing, the Spark network's actually testing those particular allocators. So why do allocator pathways in this kind of data cap flow, why do the roles in this flow care about retrieval? Well, we've heard earlier today from Marta that retrieval is a big part of why data cap could be given in the future because it links to what makes data valuable. It's kind of used as a heuristic for valuable data if people actually want to retrieve it. And each step of this journey, the role actually does care about measuring retrievability and understanding how better they can allocate their data cap. Right from the root key holder level, who want to know which meta allocators to give data cap to, the meta allocators want to know which allocators to choose, and then the allocators want to understand the retrievability that certain SPs are giving so that they can then give clients data cap, to which they would then give on to SPs, all of which needs to understand kind of how good the retrievability of the previous deals that they've made to make sure that they're doing the best possible job that they can. And so since the Filecoin Foundation has been speaking to SPs and saying, okay, retrievability, which we're going to measure through Spark, is an important thing for future data cap allocation, that has been sort of the incentive for SPs to really care about making their retrievability good. And we've had an influx of SPs asking us about how they can improve their Spark retrievability score, what they're doing wrong, et cetera, et cetera. And actually, a lot of it has been just setting up their retrieval infra correctly, making sure that their boost is working correctly, making sure that they're advertising to IPNI correctly, that they're able to deal with simultaneous requests or many requests at the same time. So it's kind of simple things. It's not even kind of people kind of acting rationally or like doing game theoretic best practices, literally just setting themselves up to serve retrievals. But the incentives, even in kind of in these early stages, have made people start to focus on this, which has been great. So what's that actually look like in terms of charts? Well, we've seen the retrieval success rate of the overall Filecoin network go up from sort of around 1.5% to now up to around 4% over the last 90 days. If we then look at storage providers who have at least served one successful retrieval, so people who are actually focused on having a good retrieval story, we're looking at kind of going from around 25% overall retrieval success rate up to around 50%, which is really cool. We're starting to see it trend up as storage providers are incentivized to improve their retrieval story. And over the last 90 days, this was a histogram of minor retrieval success rate. Because if you look at the right-hand chart, I went through this yesterday, so I'll just go very quickly again. On the right-hand chart of both the last 90 days and the last 7 days, we can see a histogram of storage providers who have a non-zero retrieval success rate. They've served at least one successful retrieval and what their retrieval success rate is. So in the last 90 days, you can see that we've got kind of 70 or so in that 0 to 20 percentile bucket, and then it kind of dies off as we go up. But in the last 7 days, we can see that more storage providers have moved out of that lower bucket up towards the sort of 60 to 100 percentile range. So we're seeing an improvement of the retrieval success rate of individual storage providers. And that sort of complements what we saw on the previous slide, the trend up. And again, last 7 days, we can now see that some storage providers are providing a retrieval success rate of 1.59s, that's what I'm going to call it. And Hannah yesterday said that 3 nines is, that's a really respectable retrievability score. So yeah, we're starting to see some really, really good looking retrieval success rates across storage providers. Okay, yeah, now kind of getting on to talking points and problems with what we're currently seeing. And please jump in and make this discussion if anyone has any points as I'm going through these. We've moved from this Fill Plus LDM program to allocator pathways and allocators. Speaking to Will and Marta and others, each allocator has their own terms of service. I'll go to the next slide. You can see top left here, this is actually the Fiddle open data pathway, requirements. It's written up in GitHub, and we can see that it just says that the data set is made readily retrievable. From our point of view, I think just having sort of these requirements written up in loose form in GitHub, we need a way that we can actually like codify that and turn it into something which is testable, something which we can say, all right, we know that Spark has to make sure that it hits these retrievability requirements, and there's more of like a spec around what each allocator is saying that they will do, or say what their requirements are for allocating data cap. If we can do that, let me go through to this slide again. If we can kind of codify different levels of retrieval requirements, and again, this is the bottom left, this is a slide from Will, I think from last year, where he's got these like different tiers of retrievability. If we can kind of codify that into each allocator and what their requirements are for retrievability, and then we can add it to bottom right here, like we can add like a retrieval tier perhaps to the deal metadata on chain. And then we can even observe, like, for DDO, if we have like these events that come out and they can even tell us what the retrievability should be, then Spark has much more kind of concrete kind of metadata it can work with to test retrievability. Because at the moment, it just feels like we're trying to gather data from a lot of different places, and it's all a bit loose in terms of what we're trying to test. The other thing which I'd like to sort of brainstorm a bit more and get feedback from the Crypto Econ team as well, is that the incentives for what's making SPs care about retrievability and the incentives for what's making the Spark clients make these requests and actually create the Spark data is governed, like they're kind of independent. One is based on data cap and making sure that for the SPs that they're going to get more data cap allocation. Yet for the Spark clients running on station, it's about getting these kind of fill micro payments. However, the fill micropayments, they're coming from sort of grant funding, and they were, I suppose, just to really get the whole program off the ground. But we'd like to find a way that that funding or the fill that eventually reaches, or well, let's just say more generally the tokens that eventually reach the Spark clients, it'd be cool to have that to be sort of set up so it's a bit more perpetual and it's linked to the whole flow of what's important to people, which is this retrievability. So is there a way that we can tap into data cap or the flow of data cap potentially through these new smart contracts that Will's been talking about, where Spark like retrievability scores are then on chain and data cap is deals are then proxied through these these other smart contracts before they're made? Can we link up the first flow here to the second flow and somehow find a way to get value from this data cap flow into the Spark funding flow? Yeah, and then the other thing to mention there is that as this Spark data becomes more valuable and it becomes more linked to data cap allocation or the ability, like the revenue model of storage providers, we're going to see different attack vectors open up on like the Spark data. And like again, if we have these two things as separate and not linked, be interesting to explore with Crypto Econ Lab and others, like if that's going to be a problem or whether we need to kind of create like a more, just kind of connected system such that there's, the ways that people can attack this don't change. When one of these flows changes, it doesn't like dramatically affect the other side of the network. Thank you very much. And yeah, please, any questions?